today's webinar is going to be on 12 car and road rallying, and we're really lucky to be joined by a local expert, David Smalley, who has driven and navigated in various of these events alongside many other disciplines. So I would like to hand over to David, who's going to be running tonight's session.
Good evening, everyone. As Laura's just introduced me, I've driven and navigated on 12 cars, and I've had some level of success. So there's a little bit of a funny story. I think it's funny, you might not, about how I got into 12 cars. So my dad used to compete navigating on 12 cars many years ago, for quite a few years for a few different drivers. He, once I turned sort of 18, 19, got my own driving license, thought that I could drive, I should probably do for the testosterone and thinking, yeah, cool. And I said to him, Dad, I want to start doing some 12 cars. I want to drive. Are you going to navigate for me? And he turned back to me, and I stand by his words, and I do believe it was the right thing for him to say. He said, you'll never be a good driver on road rallies if you can't navigate. So, and you're going to start navigating. So during 2008, we started going up marshalling on some local 12 car events. And at the end of the events, Dad didn't want me to ever compete as a beginner because I knew how to read a map. I knew how an ordnance survey map worked. So we asked to get the handouts for novices. We'd actually sit at the kitchen table with a blank ordnance survey map, and he'd say, right, David, where are we going to the first junction? He tried to put me under a bit of pressure like he would on a 12 car event while I tried to plot the route. And I got on all right with it, quite enjoyed it, had a bit of fun. And then during 2000, I'm just trying to look now. So 2009, we started doing the events, and we didn't really have a car that was that suitable. One event, his company car had gone off, been away for work, and he had a Chevrolet Matiz or Day Matiz, and what are they, 800cc or something. And we did one of our first 12 cars. We did in that because he had it at the time, and it didn't really matter. And it rained all night. We thought we was going to flood the car. I think we actually won the novice class in it. And so my love for it carried on from there. And after a couple of seasons, he did sort of say to me about having a drive, and I said, no, I'm quite enjoying navigating. So I carried on navigating. So in 2010, we did a full season in the Kings Lynn District Motor Club 12 car championship. And we actually won, in our first full season of it, we won the novice class, which how it works in Kings Lynn is if you win the class, if you had some competition in the class as well, then you should step up to the semi-expert and move forward. So I said, well, I'm not going to do it. I might as well take a challenge, try doing semi-expert. There was another lady who was doing semi-expert at the time. So I moved forward, and then we managed to win the semi-expert class. So that was 2011. 2012, we decided to then just move up to experts again, just thinking, well, what's the worst that can happen? We might as well have a go. And we were still enjoying it and having a laugh. And actually, by this point, I'd moved out from home. It was actually quite nice to just go back and have an evening with my dad every Wednesday, once a month, and just do something to see him. It gave me an excuse to go back. So yeah, 2012, we competed as an expert at Kings Lynn, and we didn't have a particularly good year. We didn't disgrace ourselves, but it was a steep learning curve. That there was quite a big jump up. So at this point, my brother wanted to start getting involved with Dad. So I was just looking. The blue MG is me and Dad, and that was I can't. That was probably around the 2011 time, 2012. So then I said to my brother wanted to get involved, so he wanted to start doing some navigating with Dad. I said, look, I'll be able to find a driver. Don't worry about me. If he wants to do it, give him a fixed position. You navigate for Dad, bring him into the sport. I'm not going to win the championship anytime soon at experts. So the level of competition is too good. So first year I went away from Dad, went and competed as an expert, and I won the expert championship. And then won it again. I was just looking at 2014, 2015. I was beaten in 2016 by another navigator. Then won Kings in 17, 18. Worryingly, in 19, got beaten by my brother for the year in the championship. So that was all good family banter. And a different navigator called Paul, then I think it was 21. He went, and then last year again, it was really close between me and Matthew. and we've had a good battle, really friendly family battle between the two of us. And yeah, I'm happy to see them do well. They're happy to see me do well. But I think I managed to beat by 1 point last year. So that's a bit about me. And then obviously in the meantime of doing the 12 cars, I've been off and done some National B road rallies as a navigator. The picture to the far right is me and Mark Bannon, who's quite involved with some of the Anglia Motor Sport events. That was on the Myotis rally. I should have this written down really. Myotis rally was a Salisbury Plain. It was an eye-opening place. Being on there, we was on there for sort of 6 hours at a time, doing like sections, and it was a wild ride for all night. And I think we had some very good results. And then in the middle, just because everyone likes a mini, there's a picture of me and Peter Horsburgh, who's a Kingsland member as well, and we was competing on the East Anglian Classic. So I've done lots of navigating, and then I've then had a little go at driving on 12 cars. And I actually had my brother sitting with me on an Anglia Motor Sport Club, one of the Interclub 2020s, and me and Matthew won that. So I won that as a driver with him navigating, which people did mention that we might well be cheating because we could both navigate quite well. So it was a little bit of an advantage for us both being there. But we have a good time. We enjoy the competition between us, and yeah, I absolutely love it. And if anyone ever tells you that a road rally is all about the driver, maybe more so on an actual road rally, but on a 12-car event, the navigator is by far the most important part of the puzzle, because I would say a bit more in a little while about it, but you can be as fast as you want to the first T-junction, but if at that T-junction you don't know where you're going, so the slow and steady person who does will just come past you and they'll be in front of you, and then you'll be in your way for the whole time. So navigator is key. Navigator is the main part of it. So just go on to timings, talk about that. So all 12 cars and road rallies are timed to an average speed of 30 mile an hour on any public roads. The only time that the times change for certain sections is when they use private roads, then they can change some of the average speed, because they're then on, they can run a test on a private property, but I'm sure they should still be 30. So when you arrive at your control, along the route there will be time controls. That is how the 12 car works. And on those time controls, basically you are there, due time will be the average speed of 30 mile an hour from the previous control or the start to that next point. If you arrive at that control early, you should wait at your control board, which is usually marked by C or control, and you wait at that point until the minute before. So say you're due at 5 minutes past, at 4 minutes past, you then enter from the control board into the control. That gives you a minute to deal with the paperwork with the marshals to then move forward. That saves being so rushed. Or if you are waiting for a long period of time, it's worthwhile always trying to pull over just to make sure that someone behind can still move forward and that you're not going to block the road. And obviously, just trying to pull up in a sensible place till your due time is quite important. It was a bit that I put in about driving on a navigational event. I put smooth is the name of the game. If you're trying to throw your navigator around in the car and he's trying to read your route off an ordnance survey map and having to hold on, it's never going to go well for you. You're going to be lost. So the navigator is going to have to be key. You need to come up with a way of communication. If it's going to be a certain thing that's interesting, is miss a right, which I always use because it just means you're going to be going past the road on your right hand side. It could be on an ordnance survey map. You don't know if that road is actually going to be a 90 right and the road you want is straight on. So using the terminology miss a right, it then allows you to know that you're actually going to be taking straight on. You have to miss that yellow road on the right hand side, which could mean in theory turning off the road you're on. So work out how you're going to speak together and work with that. But the navigator always controls the temperature in the car. That's just, you want your navigator to be comfortable. You don't want them to get car sick. It's going to make a mess inside your car. It's going to make a mess everywhere. It's not going to end a not good night. So that's just something I said. That's my opinion, is the way to go. I've had it before when you go past a code board. So on the correct route, there will be code boards. The norm now seems to be that the code boards are number plates, usually 3 letters from a code board. There might be other ones that are different, but that tend to be about 3 digits, and they will be on the correct route. And recording them in the right order is how our route checks to know where you're going. So once you've been past that, you'll slow down because you want your navigator to be able to read it. The worst thing you can then do is get it, accelerate hard while your navigator's trying to write the code board down. That's no good to anyone. He's going to be struggling, and then that's going to take even longer for him to write the code board down, and then they're going to be even slower telling you where to go to the next junction. Long way around the triangles. These always amaze me. Any driver I've sat beside, they go to a long way around the triangle. It's not near any houses. Like to use the handbrake to get around to save a lot of faff. So they think they're Colin McRae, and then because they've got a little bit of an adrenaline buzz, will try to drive away quickly. Again, it doesn't help because there's always been a code board on that triangle. I'll explain more about what a long way around the triangle is for you that don't know. But yeah, trying to accelerate hard than that when you're trying to write down, again, just makes your life really difficult. This, you can tell that I'm a navigator by how I wrote this anyway. Marshals, when you come into a time control, you will know most of the time when you're going to be approaching a time control. Sometimes you don't know when you're approaching a passage control. But as soon as you see those marshals, dip your lights, ease back. The last thing them marshals do, who are giving up their night to stand on the side of a road in whatever weather's going on outside, or you're in the warm, they're not going to want you tearing up to them, splashing you with water, and being rude. So them marshals, they're your friend. They are the people that are giving up their night to give you a good night's sport. So always be nice, polite, wish them a good night. That's just common courtesy to them. I've said that built-up areas, you have to treat those any 30-mile-an-hour zone, 20, 30, sometimes 40, depends on what's going on in the evening. You've got spotlights on your car, you turn them off, you be quiet. There's sometimes we have DSOs out, but that is not the reason that we go, because there's a driving standards observer. That is not the reason that we slow down and we turn our auxiliary lights off. We do that to try and make the event as invisible as possible. Last thing we want is people complaining, people contacting the police, people contacting the local motor clubs. It's never going to be good for the sport, and it's just going to get everyone into trouble, and it's going to cause the organisers a lot of hassle. If the organiser of the event has put a lot of time and effort to organising this event, then has to deal with loads of complaints afterwards, they're not going to come and organise another event. So there is a whole thing of the whole thing is based around people volunteering. So we really don't want to upset them. So yeah, final bit there, the speed limit. Yes, you can drive to the speed limit. That is not against the law. But when you start going over the speed limit, that is. So you do need to, no matter what you're in, you need to be thinking about the speed limits and being legal on the roads. Could have added a bit about car preparation. I'll add that now. So just your car, it doesn't need to be the stiffest car in the world. Having the most stiffest, fully blown rally car is not going to help. That is, again, going down a bumpy road with bouncing all over the place is not going to help a navigator to get a good result. Some of the cars I use, multiple disciplines, and that is always going to be a case. And there has to be a compromise somewhere. But that is a compromise you have to make yourself when you're making your car. Grid references. I'll put in about 4-figure and 6-figure grid references. Any 12-car navigational event will base around an ordnance survey map, and it will talk about a 4-figure grid reference. I've taken these from a GCSE page because it was the easiest way for me to just describe them to you. If you can't plot a grid reference, then I would advise taking some time, if you're going to compete on an event, to learn how to plot them. I've talked about it in here. Something that I've always been told is along the corridor and up the stairs, which references here, which always means you go along the horizontal axes before doing the vertical axes. You always have every grid line is numbered, and then you get your 4-figure grid reference, which will give you a grid square. So if you need to read more, we'll talk about that afterwards. But yeah, grid references are key. The 6-figure grid reference, this is where it gets a little bit difficult and people struggle to understand. So in a 6-figure grid reference, break it into 2 sets of 3. The first 2 numbers of each 3 will be the grid lines, and then the following number will be the tenths across the grid square. So you won't be able to, you can estimate, this talks about estimating, obviously, when it comes to plotting a lot on a route is not going to help you. You need to know an accurate measurement. So on the next page, I've put in just the romas that we use. So when you line this corner here up with your grid line, you look how many tenths you are across. So for example, if you was 4 tenths across, you would put the 4 on the grid line, which would then give you the 0 point would be that way across. And then on this axis, you would again put the number it is, and then you end up with your point actually showing to the place where it needs to be on the map. I've shown the Don Barrow type here. I'll use the basic Roma Company one, always have done, but the Don Barrow one is usually a very simple scale. It just doesn't show all of the numbers, but as you can see, the one's the first square and then 2 out. If you've ever used one, you'll know that they probably look a little bit complicated, but these give you everything you need to do. So sometimes you'll get a quiet zone or a black spot and on a certain radius. So once you've plotted the grid reference, it could be a 300-meter radius. So what you then lay your 300-meter, and then you draw the circle around, and that would be your quiet or your black spot that would always be given to you in final instructions or in regulations. On there, so there's a 200-meter. I should have started from the bottom really. Pretty sure this one's is there a 100-meter somewhere? Oh, that's 100-meter. Sorry, 100-meter radius, 200-meter, 300 meters, 400, 500, and this one follows a pretty similar approach with the different sides. So if you're ever looking at navigating, that's one of the early doors things you should get yourself. So I'm going to go on to, this is now going to really focus on navigation. This actually comes, I made this slideshow for a training event that I did previously. I stood up in front of people. So I think it works. If it doesn't, I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, time card, that was more important. Should have had what's coming next. So this is a King's Lynn Motor Club time card. These are a little bit different. They're very easy for the organiser to work out the results from, but they're not the same as some of the other clubs use. So on here, if you was car 1, your car 0 due time is run here. So this number here would be 01, not 00. And your aim is to stay on this line here, down all the controls, and that would be that you haven't dropped any minutes. If you start dropping time at controls, which you probably will, you then come across, say we've dropped 3 minutes here, we'd come across to 4. Yeah. And then that is your due time. Your due time then follows downwards each time down the line, and you can end up with a zigzaggy line going across. But basically, as long as you'll know how many minutes you've dropped total, because you're that many minutes across. Code boards would be written down here, your 3-digit numbers, and the way we go across is in order. This way does allow you to actually add in code boards, so that there is a certain amount of honesty. If you was to miss one, you could go back and get it in order and put it in. The different ways some of the other clubs use, which is equally as good system, they've got no preference over it. They would have the times for this one, and then they'd have the code boards for that section, and then the next time. And then each time you get to that control, they then put a line through the blanks. So say that that row of boxes was between TC1 and TC2, they would then, any you haven't done, they would then put a 10 line, so from that point to the end, and that wouldn't allow you to write any more code boards in. And that meant that you wouldn't be able to go back. It would always be a gamble going back, but that would stop you doing it. Always, if you're ever going to go to an event, make sure, if it's going to be your first time, make sure you're there early, have a chat with the organisers, work out the time card, understand how it's going to work, take plenty of time to read through the finals and to work everything out from there. Oh, there you go. That's with the due time. So this is something that was in, it was probably a difficult novice event. So I've put these in because I could give you really simple things that people have seen before, and I've got some simpler things later on, but I've tried to just talk about some of the handouts in here that I think would be benefit to someone who's looking to navigate at a novice level. So I'll talk through them, and hopefully then if you ever was to see them, it wouldn't be completely alien to you. So I've got, yeah, hang on, I need to move. I've got the people bit just slightly in my way. So the grid reference 775258 plots here, and the start was in Great Massingham. And then it was crossing in the volume. Oh, sorry, that wasn't there at all. But that was where the start was, and it was to take us to TC1, which was at 775258. I just spotted a mistake. So that was where TC1 plotted. And then it was crossing the following grid lines. So the grid lines are shown across the bottom and up this side here. So you're looking to cross those in order to get you to the finish. And coloured roads only. CRO stands for coloured road only, which means you will not be using white roads on the route. So first of all, we're down here, we're crossing grid line 79. And then it's put in brackets here because you cross 79 and 24 at exactly the same time. Here, 79 and 25 again, you seem to cross them at exactly the same point, so they're shown as together. 78, which was there, 77, and then back 77. So it's quite important here to realise that you actually have to cross 77 twice. So instead, there's a yellow road that runs up through the R of Hartley. So the shortest possible route would have brought you through here, then up and across. But to cross grid line 77 twice, you have to come down this road and then back in. And there was, because this was from an event, there was a code board in here. So if you was to go that way and cut up the shortest route, it would have been a fail, and you would have then had one fail. These are hated by a lot of people. Oh, was there any questions on those cross grid lines? I can't. Is everyone? Was I too quick? Seeing no hands up, I'm going to carry on. So these are like road colours. So this is a bit different because when I wrote it, I used small Y's for a smaller yellow road, which you can see the difference. Oh, there's a good place to show. So you get a small scale yellow road, and then you get a larger one. So some of this one here, I'd say, is a larger yellow. So that was in as a capital Y, and that one was a small Y because it was a smaller scale yellow road. So we had our control was here, Hartley Downs, and then I've plotted TC2, which is actually up here. So first of all, this way is written. So you approach on the first letter is the road you approach on, and then obviously you join the green road. So it's a yellow, green, green. At that point, you don't know if you're turning right or left. Here was quite obvious because you'd already used this road, and you'll never use the same route twice. So you knew you was turning left. Just got to remember what I did. So this one was done. So the road colours were clockwise. So each junction you come to, that is not classed as a crossroads. That was a staggered. So it was a green, yellow, green. So it'd be, if you went round what I've now drawn as a circle, but you went round in clockwise formation from the road you approach on, that is the letter. So it would be green, so yellow off to the side, and then green straight on. So that meant you then got to look at the next handout, which starts with the small Y. So that means you were turning onto the Y. So it's a bit backtracking. But you know, 4 Ys is going to be the crossroads. So you're going to be turning down this way to the crossroads here. Again, you don't know where you're going. And what got picked up the last time I did this was I had to add in an avoid here. Always watch out if there's an avoid or any other information on your handout, because you can get so into plotting all of your route, and then last minute you see an avoid or something extra or a long way around a triangle, which again I'll talk about later. That can then cost you an event, because you will then think, oh damn, I should have gone that way. So here, this handout actually worked by going up this way and that way. So the avoid plots on that junction. I'm going to just spin myself around because there's suns in my eyes, which I haven't accounted for. Give us 2 seconds.
So whilst David just jumped away, one point I'll quickly add is that 12 car and road rallying, this is one of our streetcar disciplines. So I think we've spoken about streetcar a little bit in the last few webinars, but essentially what that means is that this is one of the disciplines you can take part in your very road car. So whatever you've got, you can go and take part in one of these events.
Thank you. So I know there's a piece of map missing. So obviously after the 4 Ys, it almost needs to come a few together. So you need to plot more of the route to then find out where you're going. You obviously knew it was heading over to TC2. So once you'd gone this way, if you knew you was avoiding that, you knew it was a likelihood you're going to be going to the right. Any local navigator in Kingston knows we always love this junction because it's a big open triangle, and you can hide a control in on the right hand side or a passage control, which makes it very interesting. So people can't aimlessly go drive around the triangle to get a code board. They have to be right. So I often use it like that to try and catch people out. And I don't think it's ever caught anyone out, but I always like to think it does. So those 4 junctions are all based inside this circle. So you've got the first yellow, yellow, yellow. Then you've got another yellow, yellow, yellow. So go to that one to join the bigger yellow road. and then another one where you're missing the yellows. This next, the 4 yellows, which was all of the largest yellows. This is quite hard to explain. If I have lost you, I apologise. And up here is a crossroads, which is that 4 yellows. To then bring you down to the TC there. So I'll add that is then when you would move up the classes. I haven't talked about classes. So Kings Lynn run a beginner, which tends to be on a marked ordnance survey map. Our beginners then get simple navigation to do the same route. Our semi-experts will then get a little bit more difficult route. And in Sport and Car Club in Norfolk, some of the other clubs, that semi-expert level is called intermediate. So they get slightly harder, or a simplified version of the experts. And then as an expert, I would probably expect to see all of that chain joined together with no spaces. So you don't know, you've kind of got to preempt where the route's going to go and then break it up yourself to try and work out how it's going to be. That's sometimes, I think I stood at the front of the room last time I showed this to people and they were just like, we're struggling to work out how it is now. But when you're actually doing it, you think sometimes you're not 100% sure. You think you're right, and then you'll find a code board, and it does take a lot of pressure off because you suddenly think I'm on the right route. I've found a code board, and it's such a sigh of relief sometimes to then think, oh, here we go. And there's other things. If you're not running the first car on the road, sometimes you see tyre tracks as well. And that's as daft as it sounds. If you see multiple, then you are in a lot of bother. But if you suddenly see that like everyone out of a junction's turned right, then you're sat there thinking, well, where do we go? Sometimes that is just enough to then think, oh yeah, we should have gone right. I can see what they're thinking now. So there's lots of tricks. Count one, that doesn't work for you if you're first on the road, but it's always ways to try and get yourself moving forwards. This one is a lot of plotting. I'll highlight them as we go. It's a time-consuming handout. So we knew where TC2 was. We'll plot the northwest approach to TC3, and you know this is going to take time. As an organizer, you do want people to take time because that's how you know you're going to get a result if people are dropping time. If you're going to have everyone clean on 0 minutes and 0 fouls, then you've got to make an awkward decision about who's the winner, or you have a lot of equal. So you do want people to be dropping time because fails for missing code board always overruns time. So someone who's got the completely right route and dropped up to 30 minutes, because it's usually 30 minutes time limit, will always beat someone who's missed one route check, even if they've dropped no time. So getting the route right, getting the navigation right, going the correct route, and or getting the same list of code boards or the right list of code boards in the right order is very important. So this is why this handout would be important to plot. So I've highlighted them as I go through. So we don't need to, well, unless you really want to plot them, I think come back. Oh, so the LWRT, that I've meant to talk about this on the next page, but long way around the triangle means that there's a grass triangle and you go the furthest side of that triangle when you drive it. So straight away on this handout, I'd be looking to where that plots. That's giving you a really good idea where you're going to head in that, or between TC2, TC3, you've got to go via a triangle at that point. And I've just realized this is avoids. So every one of these is going to block a road. So I'll go through them and I'll show you that they block each place. Go one too many, I'm in trouble. I thought so. So here we visit TC2. When we come down to the junction, we've blocked our right-hand turn. We've blocked going down the main road left. So we're going to have to come up through West Rudham. Again, we can't go straight on, so we've got to turn right, back on ourselves, go down to the main road. Here was a difficult plot. If you did plot this accurately, you thought you wouldn't be able to come down this road, but it's a big triangle. So the idea was you came straight down the road and then turned in on that tiny little road there. There was quite a difficult one to see, and then there was a code board hidden on that piece just there. So attention to detail when you're plotting something like that. If you're plotting a grid reference and it plots here and there's nothing around it, you might as well go straight for it. You could just you're somewhere in the vicinity, you go. But when it comes down to multiple junctions, you need to be very careful how you plot the grid references because that will take you and show you the right route. We then came down here. You could have gone around here, but navigation should always be the shortest possible route. And obviously it was coloured roads only, so there was no going onto any whites. Here we knew it was come to the triangle, which this one actually took us off to this side and down. We came down to Boxthorpe and into the control. The next bit should just talk to us try and help you understand a long way around a triangle. So at this point, if you was to be coming along this road straight across the bottom, if you had as a plot to go along around the triangle, you just have to go into the triangle and turn right, come back to the give way, and the code board on a triangle, usually mentioned in the finals, could be on the left or right hand side of the road, probably to make it as most obscure as possible, but easy to read if you take the right route, but difficult to see if you was to go straight through. This side could be interesting. So if you was going to be coming from this right hand side, you would actually come to the crossroads to turn left instead of taking the shortcut. If you could be coming from the south, heading to the north, and if that was a long round triangle, you'd actually go down this bit, give way, if that was the way the road was intended, to come back on yourself to then go down there, and the code board would be hidden in that slot. They get used quite a lot. I'd say some events they don't use them at all, but it's a way of keeping the average speeds down, and it's a way of slowing the cars down. So I'd say on average an event probably has 3 or 4 long way rounds of triangle in it inside the event. So always look out for either a triangle symbol, LWRT for long way around the triangle. Next section. This was just using things that were on the map. Brings up. So we knew where TC3 was actually where we just finished the last piece. Plot TC4, which was over here at the entrance to a white. And then so straight away we was looking for something that looked like UR. Well, this is technical, and I have made this was overcoming just to explain to people what you might see. So there's RU in Rudham, but because you go into the U before the R, that is why I wrote it UR. I think it probably could be contestable. Someone might say something, but then you went to the G afterwards. So that'd be a confirmation. I think if you come down that road, you would actually hit, it's always based on the ordnance survey map. You go through the U and the R in the same word, then the G is coming on this road. So then it was spot height. I haven't talked about spot heights. That's just a good reminder to me about spot heights. So spot heights are always shown on an ordnance survey map, and you have to be very careful about where the black dot is, because the black dot will be the navigation that you're going to use. So 63 is awkward because it looks like there's a dot there and a dot there. So I would question, try not to use that in a handout if I was going to use it. But 69 here shows the black dot, which it's probably not that clear on a computer, right in the middle of the crossroads. So after doing the UR, the G, come to that 69. This one here is on a white road, and again, go back to here, coloured roads only. So we know that we've got to head that way. Because I've said only, the shortest route, the next thing after that was 844260. 844260 is here. So we never got to get to that point by shortest route possibly, which would be up there, but because it's crossing through other letters and it says only here, we wouldn't go that way. So to do that, we'd come down to this junction, head up, then across. I didn't include 63 because I actually believed that 63 was out on this road and we didn't want to turn down that road. And then there was a plus for a church, and it's really quite hard to see, but it is clear on a normal ordnance survey map. There's a plus just in there. So that was then to go via this road to the control. Quite technical. That probably wasn't the best example to use that on, but yeah, usually there'll be the route that you need to take will pass through certain letters. This is a little bit mind-blowing, and I'm going to do my best to explain this. So if you was to see this, you might think, what on earth is this? And I've had a few people try to explain it to me in different ways. And so all it is, you stay on the central line. So you stay on the central line. So here it goes around a triangle. So here I did that for a long way around a triangle, and that was for a long way around a triangle, and so was that into a white for a triangle. Each one of these is missing a road. So you are missing a road. So that you are going over a white road is going to be either side of your road, and you're going straight over it. Just check. The next bit shows it on a map. So I know TC4 is now out to the top. That's where we just plotted. TC5 down here. So you've got a long section to use this. So the control was there in that white. So the first thing is you're going across the white crossroads. That's fine. Straight over that white. I really wish it was zoomed, but so you at that point you need to have a white on your left and a white road on your right. That is what the dash is for. So you carry on straight through, which was that junction. Then you need to miss a road on your left hand side, which is that one that goes up there. So you carry on round. There's a white that goes off there, links through. So you miss that on your left hand side. And then at this junction, you've got a yellow road on your left, a white road on your right, and that goes that way. Then we miss a white on our right hand side, which is this instruction, which is there, and a white on our left hand side, which is there. Coming down to a T junction, turn left. So you miss a road on T junction, turn right, and you miss a road on your left, which is that one. Here we come down to that would bring us this way, and there's so we need to miss a road on our right. So we're traveling that direction. The road to our right would be this one, but we're just going a long way around a triangle at the entrance to it. And then the next thing you got is going to be a crossroads, and it's straight over, coming down there. I'll hold it there. If I've completely lost you with this, I apologise. They take a bit of head scratching, and some people don't. Actually, I'll just go to the next junction after. So this one here, the one after the crossroads, would be miss a road on the right. So that's actually a turn left. So the road on the right would be the yellow road that's actually straight ahead of you. So you actually have to turn left. Ben, I'm happy to listen to what you have to say.
It was just when you said about like herringbones, they are an absolute head. Like, it takes a really long time to get into the sort of the zone of what a herringbone is. And one thing, I think it was my dad that said, and it's always stuck with me. And to me, it just then made a world of sense. So if you imagine, obviously, the dot is TC4, the arrow is TC5, you've got that whole route, and you just stretch it out.
Yeah, I completely agree.
For me, that worked really well. Just that sort of visualization of straight lining that route. So it isn't turning left, turning right. Just like you said, David, it is missing a road on the left, right.
What I said, but missing the roads. Someone else has said to me previously as well, you treat every junction like a roundabout. So each one of them, where it joins, you treat that as a roundabout. So you know you've then, I sort of get it. And I've also seen people turn the handout. So the dot is basically their belly, and the arrow's facing away, the furthest away from them, and then they use that as trying to go through. People find their own way to do them, and they're a funny thing. And I can look at them and I get them, and we work with them and find them absolutely fine. I said, and then you're trying to explain it to someone, something that you know how to use, and then trying to explain it to someone else is one of the most difficult things. They're like, surely that means turn right. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I try to explain it. Yeah, I like it. I like them as a handout. I think they're very clever. But yeah, trying to sometimes explain it to other people is difficult. So that was the miss a right after the crossroads, and then it was miss a white on the right, and then a long way around a triangle into a white on the right. So there was a miss a white on the right there, and then this white on the right, that was actually a triangle into there. Miss the yellow road on the left. I'll try to look at the handout, which was that one. And then a white almost straight away after it, which I think is just there. Then there's a busy junction here. So it was miss the right, miss the left that then went up that way. So you actually took that across and then missed another left. And then it brought you down this way, where you was then missing a white on your left, which is there. And then coming down to here, I know I've now covered it a little bit with my TC5, is a white road going straight off behind that. So it was acting as a crossroads, even though it was green road, but you don't show any difference between the green and the yellows. So that there was shown as a crossroads turn left, but with the white was straight ahead. So you're missing the green that was to your left, the white that was straight ahead of you to turn right. Then missed a white on your right hand side, which was that one. And then down to this junction here was another long way around the triangle before heading back on the road. So you missed the yellow road on the right. You'd actually did a long way around to just come the further side of the triangle to come back. Then there was two whites on the left-hand side before you get to the TC5. While that's on my screen, is there anyone else have I just blown anyone's mind? Anyone else wants to ask anything else about that? I can always come back to it afterwards. that makes any level of sense, I will carry on.
I've got a quick question for you, David. How long did it take you from first seeing one of these herringbones to the point where you suddenly looked at it and thought, right, I've got it?
I had to work that out on the kitchen table before I could even do an event. Dad was there pressurising me, saying, "Come on, David, sort it out, plot it." Yeah, probably 4 or 5 events. I'd say maybe 4 events of getting them going. What the hell is this? Now we would an expert, sort of a semi-expert or an intermediate thing would be you would get the ends, or it might be reversed, so you'd end up going, say, from right to left. And then there's something called a circular herringbone, which the dot and the arrow would be joined together and it'd be on a circle, not a straight line. So you don't know where your start point is. So from where you are on the map, you have to work it out. And I don't know how. Sometimes I wonder how we'd say you'd get 10 minutes to do the section. You've got to work that out and then plot your route and then try and get that. For some reason it works. Some reason I said, and I enjoy it. And I was keep saying this because I did the last one. And everyone just goes, "How do you get any fun out of doing this?" And but it is. I just said it is just. It's a bit of a test. It's a bit of a challenge, and it puts you a little bit of pressure.
It's interesting just listening to this, David. It just shows how important a navigator is in road rallying or 12 cars. And this is one of the disciplines where you are working so tightly as a team, because if your navigator doesn't know where you're going, like you say, the speed really is completely irrelevant. Yeah,
I'd say that, yeah. A stage rally, you could, if your navigator didn't speak for the whole stage, you could drive it on site. It wouldn't be comfortable, but you could just about get by. Whereas this, a driver without being told where to go to junctions and never going to get anywhere. Like a lot of people turn up and think like they're going to get round, turn up with, say, their wife, enter as a novice, not thinking, oh yeah, she can read a map or she's done a bit on Atlas, and then all of a sudden they want to drive fast, they don't give the navigators a chance, and they end up going home. And that's why I tried to emphasise early doors that this really is important to your navigator to have time to try and get on the route. Obviously not too long, because there's a 30-minute time limit. If you go more than 30 minutes late, then you'll find your marshals will have moved and you'll be out of the event. So there is a certain amount. If you're dropping a lot of time in a section, you've already been given the grid reference for TC5. If you didn't know what this was, your best bet would be to drive the shortest route to get to TC5. And if you actually did that on this route, you would have probably come down this road. You'd have gone down here, which you would have missed a couple of co-boards here, but you'd probably gone down this road. So you would have missed, and you would have got some fails, but you'd still be in the event. If you get to TC5 and you're over time limit, well, your night's over. The marshals are going to left, and you're going to be out of the event. So then you're probably going to be heading back to the pub or wherever the venue is. So yeah, cutting and running into a control is nothing to be ashamed of. We've all had to do it. It's important to keep yourself in the event. If there's a handout you just don't know, by the time you spend 10 minutes trying to plot it, if you spend that at every control, you're only 3 controls between losing your time. So that is very important.
And we've had another question in the chat, which is asking about, you've got 2 letters at the top, David, AR. Could you just explain about those, please?
That is all roads. So that is all roads are featured in the navigation. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, because I had missed that. So that's why this handout then included the white roads. So that would all roads should be considered in the handout. So ARs are very common. Another one, which I just said, was WUW, and that is will use white. So if you ever see WUW on a handout, which is it's not, Kingsland don't tend to use WUW, but I've seen it on other events. And that will be that you're going to be entering a white road or track. So just to make sure on that handout, if you've got WUW, don't be scared to turn onto a track, because that is probably where you're going to be heading. You want to be on the right track, because if not, you might find an angry farmer with a gun or something. But yes, WUW is very important. AR, all roads, CRO, coloured roads only. I can't think. And sometimes in the finals, it might say, if there's nothing written there for that, all roads should be considered. So yeah, if sometimes they don't put AR, so then that would be all considered. Or sometimes they might say there's nothing written only covered roads only should be considered. So yeah, that's important always to read the finals and make sure you understand the finals at the start of the event.
Lovely, thank you.
I think I drew a lovely. I spent a lot of time doing this bit. I'm proud of this one. So just follow the route. That was just showing where the triangle was over here, just to make it go past. I know I tried to not block the route as I was doing it. I should have really done that as I spoke. Okay. So TC5 to TC6. We knew where TC5 is where we finished the previous one. Just right at the top of the map here. I've got that many things popped up, like it was on the white road somewhere in here. I can't fire a finger around, I can sort of see it. So we was looking for the spot heights on the route, and that should have been only, so you only go through those spot heights. If you're going through a different spot height, then you need to avoid it. So straight away, we're here at 56. So we know we're going to this crossroads, turn right to head to 56. Next one we got is 71. We're looking here, 71. And then the following one was 62. So let me just, TC5 was there, TC6 was down on this road. This does go off the bottom of the map. I apologise for that, but you'll get the gist. So we're not going to be from 71. We need to go to 62, which is here. I've zoomed in on this side here to show you 62. If you look here, 62 is actually above the junction, what I said earlier about the black dot. So the common mistake was just come through here, down to that, thinking they'd got 62 to then head down this road to TC6. But actually, if you see, 62 was above the junction. So it was another one where you had to come through 71, take the shortest possible route to get to 62 before going to the control, which then in turn meant you came up this piece of the road onto this one. You look, 81 was above, so you didn't cross through 81, to then head down this way to go through 62, to then head to the control. Why is my computer now being knobbish? Oh, there we go, it's going to work now. So then there was 62, which is why I highlighted on both. Oh. And then, yeah, as I said, the route came down, across, down to TC6. Which did TC6 plot. So I added this one afterwards to. Just got to move the window again. TC6 was down on this road. This was just normal tulips. Tulips get used on a lot of events. These are probably one of your most basic forms of navigation. You'll see these on stage rally, road books to get you between, on a multi-venue stage event to get you between stages. Classic car runs, they use tulips. A lot is probably what I say. They're not overly easy sometimes, but they are the most basic form of navigation to get you through. So first of all, we're looking for this junction, which these are in order of some sort, so I can show them on the screen. It's down here. We're going to be heading back up the road past the phone box, which is here. We're going to be going around a sharp left-hand bend, missing one straight ahead, which is there. And obviously you want to be on that road, missing the one off to the right, which is here as the second junction. To a crossroads where you're going to be turning right, or staggered crossroads where we're turning right, which is this one. Next thing here is missing a road on the right hand side, which is after this. So this this would have been roads only. I know it's not shown. I was trying to get it so we could see as much as we could on the screen at the same time. So missing the road up here to the right, which is that one there. And then a horrible junction, which gets used obviously quite often because it's very picky and people like using that on 12 cars. And that was just bringing us over onto this road here. Missing the main road going past, and then the little one off to the top, which was there. I've just realised this is running late. So that was to bring us to TC7, which was 840208. I think there's only one more slide of this to try and talk you through. Oh God, me and my red line. Well, it'd be clever tonight. Then across the junction down to TC7. Just for any of you that know Mark Peterson, I navigated for him on a 12 car that ran in this area. And on this piece of road here, we went through some water and it may have sucked in the water into the engine. And Dan might know about this, but it then damaged his car and we had to retire from the event. But because I knew he was going to be stranded for a little while, I wanted to push him out of the water because he obviously navigated his responsibility. And I took my shoes and socks off because I didn't want to sit in his car for the rest of the night with wet feet and be uncomfortable. So I thought we might get out of the water and get it running. So I took my shoes and socks off, and a couple of SCON members, or even doing the King's Lynn event, said he was like, I pulled my short, my trouser legs up as well. They said it was the funniest thing. They came around this corner. We was actually heading east to west to east, sorry, that way. And they said, we come around the corner and there's you, David. Rolled your trousers up, stood in the big puddle, paddling, having all the whale of a time. I said, I definitely wasn't. I said, I can assure you of that. So anyway, I digress. This one here was crossing grid lines. Departure directions of crossing grid lines. That shouldn't have been there yet. So I need to move this thing again. Should have two screens. So we knew that TC7, which we called it, was in here, time control 7. So we was heading across towards Ruffham. So this was crossing grid lines. So you wanted to be crossing a grid line to the north and then the north again. So coming into this, I think the grid reference was on that grid line. So the next place you can go to cross a grid line to the north is here. Second one north was there. Then at this crossroads to head west, he was going to be turning left to go west. Just see what it does. So yeah, north, then your west, which is this one, another west, which was there, third west, which was that one, and then south, which was going to be that one, which has already appeared. So there, to take the shortest possible route, you would have gone down here, across there, to head back down to TC8, which was the finish of this handout. Shortest possible route is a little cut across, and they say you're guaranteed at that point there's going to be a code board hidden in there to make sure they catch anyone who doesn't go that way. Oh no. TC8 finished. Clock hands. This is the last one. So clock hands. These here are mixed up. Usually you'd find as a novice or someone moving up, you wouldn't use a 24-hour clock. You'd use a 12-hour clock. But I just wrote these ones in to explain the difference. So is at TC8, come to this junction. So if you imagine the hour hand, I can't think what it is. Why have I written this like this? Just trying to think. Yeah, so you're coming in at nearly 11, well, 10 to 11. So that would be, if you was to sit at that crossroads, and that was to be the center of your clock, the hour hand would be pointing where you're coming from, which is 2200, and the departure direction would be the minutes at 48. I'm open to any if I've made a mistake here. 1546, which coming in at nearly 4 o'clock, it was the idea on the hour, and departing on the 46, which is almost straight through. Down to here, which was I classed as 1455, so 255, which could be interpreted different ways, because that would be more of a 3 o'clock. But yeah, clock hands, and then to the finish of the event. So that would say just something I put together previously to try and talk to you about different types of navigation, that any organizer will have their own interpretation of different things that they can try and add in. But I tried to mix it up as much as I could. Something I always try to remember is that they can only give you information or try and make you navigate by stuff that is on the Ordnance Survey map. So you have to have a really good look at what's available to you to see on the Ordnance Survey map, what is available in the vicinity of where you are. Open your mind to anything you might see. One thing I I'll just go back to a slide, see if I can find one quickly. Is the letters ETL. So ETL is electricity transmission line, and that is this symbol here. So just one thing I had to mention was, if you ever see cross ETL multiple times or 3 times or 2 times, you know you'd be coming once and then twice and then maybe back there for a 3rd time. So that is something that gets used sometimes as well. So if you ever happen to see ETL, think, what on earth is this? That's a good one to start. I should skip. Oh, somewhere there. Right. I am ready for any questions that you all may have. And I'm sorry that I've gone a little bit late, but if you don't ask a question, we're done.
Oh, thank you, David. I mean, personally, my mind's a little bit blown because there are just so many ways you can interpret a map, and that is quite the puzzle. So hats off.
I apologise for that. Yeah, no, I do.
No, I think it just shows there is so much navigation, and it is like a massive puzzle. It's I can see it must be so rewarding when you do crack it. I do have one question also. If anybody else has any questions after, please do put your hand up or write them in the chat. So as a navigator, in terms of equipment, what do you need? If you want to go and do an event tomorrow, what are your staples?
I should write a clipboard. And that's your time card on a clipboard. A map board. So that is something to rest your ordnance survey map on while you're trying to navigate, or something comfy to rest that on. Sometimes a big clipboard. One thing to consider is, if you happen to be involved in an accident, what damage is that map board going to cause to you? So that's something to bear in mind. You don't want a piece of wood. You don't want a piece of metal. So I have a piece of foam. It's a sturdy piece of foam, but I like to think, if in the case of an accident or something, it's going to break, it's going to give, it's not going to be something that's going to hurt me if the worst case was to happen. So that's something to consider. Pencils. High B numbers, so 4 Bs. Pencils, they mark the map easily and they rub off easily. They're not too hard. You don't end up damaging your map by writing with them. So yeah, and a few of them, pencil sharpener and a rubber. Some of us don't make mistakes. We all make mistakes. So you want to be able to rub anything off, because you don't want to then get distracted. But yeah, rubber. And then we have something called a potty. If you just, I'll grab a potty, because I've just thought you will not know what one is, and I know where there is one. I'll be 2 seconds.
So I don't know if we want to see your potty, David.
I'll have to ask him when he comes back what the sharp pencils for. Are they to jab the driver with when he's going the wrong way?
Yes, very much so, Dan.
I'm just saying, David, that the pencils need to be sharp so you can jab the driver when they go the wrong way and they don't listen.
Or when they're going too fast. Yeah, you
Right.
definitely need a potty for that. So this is a potty. Now it does sort of look like a potty. This is a wireless one. It's handy. You don't have to worry about plugs. You don't have to worry about it coming unplugged. And then inside is a magnifying glass, and then inside it is an LED ring that lights up. So when you're looking down on a map with it, especially when you get them spotlights that are hard to tell, you go back to that. Once you've got the route on the map, I tend to resort to my potty for then calling, saying the road, and if there's any sharp bends coming up for the driver before we get there. So yeah, pencils, rubber, sharpener, map board, clipboard, potty, and the roamer that I showed you earlier on. That is very important, because you won't be able to plot a grid reference accurately without it.
Brilliant. Just had a message come through on the chat. David, there must be times when you've got lost. When that happens, what do you do to get back on track?
Who is that from?
I think you can probably guess.
Yeah. So, there is one thing that's your friend, and it can always get you out of a muddle. And maps on your phone. If you are absolutely lost with absolutely no clue where you are, you probably shouldn't. But if you get maps on your phone, you'll see where the roads are. You'll see where some villages are that are near you, and then they tend to plot via GPS roughly where you are. Sometimes you can then suddenly realise what junction you're on. That is one of the worst things. And thank you for asking the question. You end up at a junction thinking, this doesn't look anything like the junction that we should be at. Sometimes you get the white signs that have villages pointing each way. Like say, Massingham to the left, Grimston to the right, for example. with that, then you're thinking, oh, I could be at this junction. So then sometimes you have to have a little ride, if not just something you can find, or you might find a church, you might find a village, just something to get you back to where you are, because you should have the right route marked on your map. So then from that point, you need to work out where you are, how you're going to get back on route, and obviously be traveling the right direction. If you're traveling the wrong direction on the route, you just need to be aware that you might meet oncoming traffic, oncoming other people competing as well.
In terms of, oh, Ben, you go for it.
It was just going to add on to that about sort of getting lost. One thing that I always do, and I'm sure David does, is I try and mark off on the map and actually like follow the road. Because also, like when you're picking up something like a code board, or you want to check what time, or you want to just check another bit of navigation, it's really easy to completely lose your place on the map. Because after like an hour or so, it all looks the same. And every road has got the same little wheels in it. You haven't got a clue where you are. So yeah, with the pencil, just a quick little tick mark, whether it be every junction or if you get really good and like every little bend. But that's a really good thing to learn and start understanding what the road looks like on the map to what is actually out the window and what you drive.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, very much so. More so, actually. I know I just had a beginner, someone then looking to get involved when they've got the whole route on a marked map. When you suddenly go back from your code board onto that map and go, where the hell was it? So yeah, no, great shout, Ben. Thank you.
David, in terms of taking part in a 12-car road rally, roughly what is the cost? And what do you need? So obviously you need your RS Club and license, which is free to get from Motorsport UK, and your club card. But I imagine they're quite accessible to get involved in.
Very much so. You're looking around for 12K. You're looking around £20 for your entry fee. That vary. I know some that are 15, some that are 19, I think. So yeah, so work on £20 for your entry fee, and that tends to include supper at the end as well. So that you can't. Well, if you think for £20, and then at the end you and your navigator both get to have some food, usually at the finish, you can't go too far wrong, I don't think. And then depends on how far you've got to travel to and from the event. You've got fuel. So fuel, I'd say depending on how thirsty your car is, how much fuel your car uses. But you're probably looking at probably £20 worth of petrol in your normal sort of road car to do. They're always around 50 miles, unless it's a different type of event. Sometimes there's some special ones that do larger mileage, but generally a 12 car is around 50 miles. And that is so it can start at 8 o'clock. And then it tends to be finished before 11. That's the sort of time frame. So the venue that you're going back to aren't up too late as well. So yeah, that is. Then insurance. So your normal road traffic insurance wouldn't cover you for competing on something that's a time trial or a timed sections on the road. So Marsh Insurance, they Bluefin, I think they're called now, they provide a cover that is an extension of your normal road policy for £20, then covers you for third party on the road while you're doing the event.
Brilliant. Another question's come through. What kind of car do you need?
A comfortable one for your navigator, because your navigator is key. I have seen people competing lots of different cars. On 12 cars, it can be anything. I'll think back to a recent event. So obviously you get a few MGZRs. There seems to be I don't know where they're still coming from, but there's still a lot of them about. So we find them. But I love sitting in a Range Rover Sport on an event. There's no end of different things that compete. Turn up with something, you're not going to destroy it unless you go really silly or do something absolutely absurd. So yeah, any vehicle that you have available to you, it wants to have some sort of light inside, potentially for your navigator. That makes it easy. If not, your navigator's going to have to wear a head torch, which is something else we're going to add to the list of things. Just something you can drive, and not too big really, because if anything too big, then it just becomes more of a faff if you need to turn around, if you've gone the wrong route. Yeah, so something you like driving.
Oh, lovely. Have we got any other questions from anyone, whether that's in the chat or if you want to put your hand up? I think, David, you might be off the hook now. I don't think there's any more questions. So if anybody does think of anything after this meeting, you're welcome to send that across. So you can do that to the email address, which is mine, which sent out the Zoom joining link this evening, and I will then forward them on to David, so definitely to answer those. Please do follow us on social media to keep on track of upcoming events. And if you're around next Tuesday, please do join us for our very last Take Part Tuesday of Motorsport Month East. So next Tuesday, Laura and Duncan Christmas will be doing a webinar on an introduction to Targa rallying. So again, that will sort of encapsulate all of the streetcar disciplines. So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you very much, Dave, for hosting this evening. It's been really, really useful and interesting. Thank you very much.
Can I just add, thank you, Laura, for your efforts in putting on as well. But please don't, if I have absolutely blown your mind and you do not go away from this thinking, I never want to do it, I'm never going to get it. I say, turn up to Marshall. That would be my first place. Marshall on the event. Then you understand etiquette a little bit at a time control. Ask the organizer for some handouts if you so want to move on to another sport. Just turn up and compete on a marked map as a beginner. Or just another thing, the Sport and Car Club of Norfolk, when they run their events, the novices, so the first step up from beginner to novice, you get the handouts for your route an hour or 30 minutes before the event to give you time to sit, ask questions and find out. So they're a good one for the people moving up between beginner and novice as well. Please don't go away from this. It's never my intention to blow your mind. I try to show you some difficult things just to try and show you what is there, try and show you the worst case scenario things you might see. So yeah, please do, if you want to come along, don't be put off by this. Come join an event and you will enjoy it, I promise.